G'day, it's Shane Dowling here from the website and YouTube channel, Kangaroo Court of Australia. I'm with Belinda Jones from the Legalise Cannabis Party. Obviously, the election's been called today by the Prime Minister, so it's good timing. She's going to go through who she is and who her party is and why you should vote for them for the Senate, or they've got some lower house candidates around the country as well. So, Belinda, you want to tell us who you are and who your party is and why people should vote for you?
Oh, thanks very much, Shane, and thanks for having me on the Kangaroo Court of Australia. I'm Belinda Jones. Everyone calls me B. I've been a Gold Coast resident here and raised my family. I was a single mum on the Gold Coast for many years, working in hospitality, retail, administration. I did FIFO work, transport, and that was all after my teaching career. And then I went into investigative journalism with Independent Australia, and I've been writing on federal politics for them for the last 8 years or so. I'm now standing for the Senate for Legalise Cannabis, and we are hoping to get our first Senate seat, and I'll be hopefully the first Gold Coast Senator. And we want to take our movement to Canberra and help get cannabis legalised and champion the hemp industry for the health and economic benefits to all Australians.
Now, the party's been in different sort of formats for, 20 or 30 years, from what I remember. What's the latest sort of format and how long's that been going?
That's it. Our movement started as the Hemp Party many, many years ago and gained that grassroots support. And it was only a few years ago we changed to Legalise Cannabis Party. And part of that is we wanted that name so that we can start addressing the stigma and demonisation of cannabis, and having people say the word cannabis and speaking openly about cannabis and all the benefits that it is bringing to so many Australians through medicinal cannabis. And it was a deliberate act on our behalf to actually include that word in our party title so that we can raise awareness and have the word cannabis in general conversation so that people can now understand what science has discovered in the past few decades about how we were fed so many untruths surrounding cannabis and what amazing properties and health benefits and ultimately economic benefits it can have for Australia. So our party has worked for many, many years, and so many people have come before me and helped get us to this position where we are now legitimate contenders at a federal level.
Well, I did see there is a number of MPs at state level in Parliament around the country.
That's it. We're very well established. We have sitting members in the state parliaments of WA, Victoria and New South Wales. And we have been a presence at local and state federal elections now for many years. So voters are accustomed to seeing us, and they usually give us a big smile and say, got any samples, and that sort of thing as they walk past. And, you know, we're very, very well respected by the community, and we just want to build on that and represent our community so that we can bring so many health and economic and other benefits to the community as we can.
Well, one of the things that interests me, and I have personal experience and personal knowledge, is that in jail, you got a substantial percentage of the people in jail are there for marijuana crimes. So, and I think it's a general discussion you have is that, you know, there must be, I don't know the percentage but it must be 10, 15% of people in jail are there for marijuana crimes or associated crimes. And if it was legalised, not only are you not having to house them in jails, which is a huge cost, you've got the court costs, the policing costs. The policing cost is probably 10 times the amount of the cost of the people in jail anyhow, because a lot of the crimes don't end up with people going to jail, but you're wasting police officers' time for someone smoking a joint at a party or whatever. So I think the costs there potentially are billions of dollars per year. Do you have any sort of costings on that?
We estimate, up to 25 billion across the country can be saved in policing and resourcing costs. It'll unclog the courts and the correction centre, as you say, and free up those systems to address real crimes. Personal use of cannabis is very much a victimless crime. A different issue with supply of large amounts and that sort of thing. That's one of the main reasons why, we want to legalise cannabis, because right now we have medicinal cannabis and many people are on medicinal cannabis and they can go down to their local AMCAL or whichever chemist and they can get their medicinal cannabis there. And then we also have that street weed illegal element, which is really costing us a lot of money. The war on drugs has failed, and that's what we want to do. We want to bring awareness and stop the illegal activity. Our model is based on the successful ACT model, where we want to help transition those black and grey market growers to legitimate growers that can that can supply a adult use market in different shop fronts or however. But what it ultimately means for anyone who uses cannabis is safety. If we can have regulated supplies and all of our cannabis growers subject to regulations and quality control, then that ensures a quality product across the board. You're not having some people on medicinal cannabis, which is a controlled, regulated, consistent product for a consistent known price. And then you have the whole illegal element where you don't know what you're getting in those products. And I know I've seen products over the years in my time, which, probably have been laced with harder drugs. And so it is much safer if we are legal. And that has been proven around the world. And that's something, as a first step, if we are lucky enough to get into the Senate, we want to look at those successful places like Canada, Thailand, even the USA, and pick out what issues did they have, what successes did they have, what was their best practice. When we are in a really great position to cherry pick the best of what's happened around the world, to use some of their peer-reviewed academic papers as a starting place. For us, our Australian academia has a really great opportunity to start longitudinal authoritative studies on a legal, quality controlled, consistent product, which will then lead to so many more studies and information. Right now, a lot of people, cannabis is a blank slate. We don't have those longitudinal studies. We don't have all that information because it's been banned and no one has been able to do these studies and find out. And slowly, as it's become legal under medicinal cannabis, we're realising how many ailments and illnesses that cannabis can help people with, how it's so successful with chronic pain. And we've got such a great opportunity not only to build up a cannabis and hemp industry, but to fill those knowledge gaps through, quality studies and share that information and best practice with others around the world who have legalised cannabis.
Oh, just one more question on that. Then we'll get into the political side of it, what it means for the Senate potentially if you do get elected, and what are the other policies. But while you're on that, you said other industries or words to the effect. Uh, Growing hemp for like clothing, it takes up a lot less water. I know I don't want to get into it too much, but that's one of the issues with the water going down the Murray is that we've got all these almond farms and they chew up a lot of water, and also the cotton apparently chews up a lot of water. The hemp, I just recall reading somewhere that, or hearing somewhere that it doesn't chew up a lot of water for farming for clothing, to use it for clothing. Do you know much about that? Or
Yes, I do. I recently went out to the University of Queensland to their hemp farm and learnt a lot about the hemp product and the hemp plant. The hemp is a whole of plant use, and that's a very, very important thing. There is no waste with the hemp plant. It is carbon neutral. And at the moment, the industry is in its infancy, and they're already achieving biomass yields of up to 20 tonnes per hectare, which is huge. And that is in its infancy. And the hemp plant can feed us, fuel us, clothe us, house us, and medicate us. So cannabis as a medicine is only 1/5 of what the hemp plant can do. And it is ideally suited for Australian conditions. It requires much less water than, say, for example, cotton. You're looking at probably half the amount of water, and you'll get a summer and winter crop. So you'll get one crop per year with cotton. You can get 2 crops per year. So therefore, farmers are already doubling their income right there. And it's a whole of use plant. Right now, our cotton, we don't have cotton mills in Australia. 99.9% of that water thirsty cotton is sent offshore, and then we buy it back as garments or products and other different things. And what we want to do is, while we simultaneously build up the agricultural industry and the hemp industry through agriculture, we also want to build up the manufacturing industry so that that domestic supply chain will act as a buffer against international headwinds, which disrupt our supply chains and push up prices. So if we have, the hemp actually has the potential for 5 unique industries. And that's what makes it such a game changer. It's suited to our conditions, and there are so many opportunities for business, investment, jobs. The hemp industry is about to take off, and it does rely on cannabis becoming legalised. And the reason for that is, if a farmer plants a crop and the THC levels are too high, according to the current standards, that farmer has to destroy that crop. And that's not incentivising the hemp industry. Where once that is legalised, that farmer won't have that problem, and the hemp industry can just boom and reach its potential.
just quickly, I want to get onto the political side, because I think there's some people or some viewers who will mainly be focused on that. We don't care about hemp. We just want to know what it means for politics if we vote for you, potentially in the Senate. But you said there was 5 industries. Do you know the headings of those industries? Like one's cotton, not cotton, but clothing, and what are the 5 industries?
Food, fibre, biofuels, building products, and medicinal cannabis.
How about we get back to them towards the end, like I said, because I think that's going to be a long conversation, which what those 5 are. Food, I don't know, cookies or something, but that's what people will be thinking. We'll get back into that, but there's people who will just be concerned about the politics of it. Number one, they're going to argue what they argue with everyone, is that we don't want a hung parliament. Well, with you in the Senate, it's not a hung parliament. But I was thinking about that before. People say, "Oh, we can't have a hung parliament; it's no good." Rah, rah, rah. Well, let's deal with that in the lower house in a second. But in the Senate, it's been a hung parliament for the last 20 odd years. I was thinking before, or even longer. I can't remember when they've had a majority in the Senate. So let's how about we deal with that in the lower house. Like, you probably aren't likely to get anyone in the lower house this election, although you've got candidates around the country in some seats in the lower house. But let's discuss that, because the last time we had a minority government was Julia Gillard. Well, publicised a minor government, and they passed more legislation than any other government for years, apparently.
Right.
So you want to have your say on that?
Well, as people know, it is the Australian people who determine the mix of our parliament, and it is the House of Representatives who determines who the Prime Minister will be and who will hold government. The role of the Senate is the checks and balances on the House of Representatives. So say, for example, if we did have an election and one party won a huge majority, if they didn't have the Senate there, they could virtually pass anything, anytime, and you know, if they control both houses. And that's good if you've got good government, but if you've got a bad government, that can be a very bad thing. So that's the reason why the Senate is such an eclectic mix, and that forms the checks and balances on the House of Representatives' actions. We do have a number of candidates running in the House of Representatives, but as you say, it's probably unlikely that we will be in a position to where we hold the balance of power there. So in terms of a hung parliament, there's a lot of narratives around how, oh my goodness, we can't have a hung parliament. It's terrible if we have a hung parliament, and all this sort of rhetoric. We have more hung parliaments than normal parliaments. As you mentioned, Julia Gillard, that was our last Labor hung parliament, and in terms of passing bills, that was the most
not hung parliament, minority government, I suppose is better.
Yeah, minority government. Every time the Liberals and Nationals govern, Liberals are governing in minority with the Nationals. So that is effectively a hung parliament.
And the Nationals hold a gun to their head when they feel like it too.
Well, that's it.
A gun to the Liberals' head.
That's it. And it doesn't provide any more surety about what's going to happen over the term of the course of the parliament. And if you remember that a few years back, the Nationals did a deal, I think it was for $20 billion in an extra cabinet position in order to support net zero. And once they got that over the line, a few months later, they reneged on that. So even a set coalition does not provide any more certainty than, say, for example, a minority government on the Labor side. I think a minority government is very effective, especially when you have an opposition that is not as effective as they should be, or you have the two major parties voting together on important legislation, and we've seen that this week. It's sort of a hung parliament does provide an alternative to Australians than the two major parties, and I believe that's probably going to be the outcome of this election.
Instead of calling them the coalition, we should probably start calling them the Liberal Party minority government, is probably a better term, because that's the reality of it. But when you look at the Senate, let's move to the Senate. The Senate has been a minority government for the last 20, 30 years. I can't remember the last time Liberals or the Labors Liberal Nationals had majority control of the Senate. Do you remember the last time they had majority control? I can't.
No, I'd have to go back and check, but it was some time ago. And I think it's a good thing that no particular party controls both houses. I do genuinely believe having a good mix in the Senate is conducive to good governance. It does provide the perspectives of all Australians. We can't just have like a Senate made up of two major parties. We are stronger because of the mix of different people and parties in our Senate, because it makes our democracy stronger and safer.
Now, if you or other members of the Legalise Cannabis Party do get elected to the Senate, you're obviously going to push for legalising cannabis. But what's your position on other policies, other government spending? Like my followers have a big interest in the National Anti-Corruption Commission. A lot of my followers on the website and YouTube channel, anti-corruption. What's your position on the, say, National Anti-Corruption Commission and, say, AUKUS, where they're spending $368 billion on 8 submarines we'll never get? Well, that's a general speculation. We'll never get them. What's your party's policies on those two issues and, I suppose, other issues?
Our party at the moment has the one policy, which is to legalise cannabis. But we have a very strong values, collection of values which define where we will, the position we will come to on any issue. And those values that do define everything we do, I'll just run through them really quickly. They're personal freedoms, civil liberties, social justice, compassion, tolerance, non-violence, peace, those sorts of things. So they will define where our position will fall on any issue that comes before the next parliament. And, you know, I'll often say that every parliament is a unique set of people facing a unique set of issues. So if someone says to me, what's your position on what you're going to debate next March or April or whatever, you know, I can only say to them, we'll come back to our values. So, for example, our values of peace would define which way we would vote on terms of defence. So if we're advocating for peace, for example, there's a little bit of talk at the moment about a peacekeeping force going to Ukraine, and we would certainly support a peacekeeping force because our values are peace. That's one of our core values. Say, for example, we're talking about the NAC. In terms of social justice, that's a very core value for us. So we would be looking to see why the NAC hasn't met the expectations of Australians that we thought it was probably going to do. It's sort of been really a bit of a toothless tiger and plagued with problems. And so there is definitely room there where we would be acting in that space from our values of social justice and civil liberties, that we must have transparency and trust restored to politics, because it's simply not good enough. And the NAC was designed to really step up and on a federal level and hold federal politicians and people in that political space to account. And I don't think it has met the expectations of Australians, and we would certainly be looking under a social justice value to improve the NAC and so that it does meet expectations and is fit for purpose and does the job it's meant to do.
Now, one of the criticisms of small parties, independents, etc., is that people will say, oh, well, they don't achieve anything. But those people saying that, I put to them, well, what do the, Labor senators and Liberal senators achieve, or national senators achieve, especially if they're not ministers or shadow ministers? You don't even know who they are. So they're not achieving anything at all. At least with independents and minor parties, they do get a bit of media coverage and push issues that those faceless senators for the Liberals, Nationals and Labor don't achieve. What do you have to say about that for people who say, it's no value voting for smaller parties and independents?
There is definitely value voting for smaller parties and independents. And what we often say to people is, for example, even in the House of Representatives, where it's highly unlikely, we're a very small party with not a lot of money. And when you're up against a fellow candidate from a major party who may have 20, 30, 40, 100 times more to spend on their campaign than you do, then it's very, very difficult for independents and minors to achieve electoral success. And that's why we've been working for 30 years to even get to this position where we are a contender, and we are actually making headway in state parliaments and achieving electoral success. And then, in the case of a minority government, then minor parties and independents can become very, very important and very, very powerful. And they have the opportunity to really achieve great outcomes for the people they represent. And but probably the most important thing is if you say, for example, vote 1, legalise cannabis, and even though we don't get in, or if we might not win the seat, what it does do is send a message to government that attitudes are changing about cannabis. And that's true of any independent party or minor party, independent or minor party. Whatever issues that they champion, anyone who votes for those people sends a message to the major parties that attitudes are changing on different issues, and they have to catch up. And it's usually some of our best policy decisions have started with independent or minor parties first, and then been adopted by the major parties when they see that people have responded well to that policy and it looks like it will bring them a successful outcome and make a lot of people happy. And I know particularly I'm thinking the main one that comes to mind is dental in Medicare, which has long been a Greens policy, but now people are more, we support that policy. And it's becoming more mainstream. It's being discussed. And a lot of our current policies started from minors and independents. So, and I take my hat off to the independents and minor parties who do stand around the country for what they believe in. It takes courage. You've got to stand up. You've got to lay your life on the line. You've got to cop a lot of criticism. And if we don't have people doing that and providing an eclectic political landscape, then we will be poorer as a nation for it. We should encourage as many people as possible. And one of the things I would definitely like to look at is how we can perhaps adapt AEC rules, because it can be financially crippling for an independent or a minor party who, say, for example, stands and there are a considerable amount of other candidates and the vote is spread so thinly that only virtually the big parties are compensated the end of the election and will get their $2,000 or, you know, their fee back. Most independents and most minor parties, that doesn't happen. And it's just constant hard work and on you know, the smell of an oily rag. And so for those minors and independents who do get through, it is an enormous success against, you know, it's a David and Goliath battle. And when they do get in, it is a good thing, because you've got a diverse spread across the Senate or the House of Representatives that represent all Australians and different Australian viewpoints.
Well, the thing is, I'll get in. Got a few questions there. At least the independents and minor parties will have a viewpoint and they'll say it publicly, whereas backbenchers for the Liberal, National and Labor, if they're backbenchers, they're not ministers or shadow ministers. They basically never say anything except for election time. They say very little. So they're not having input at all. So that's why you should vote, an argument why you should vote for minor parties and independents. Now, I want to ask you one question, then we'll get into the result last time in the 2022 election in Queensland. Let's discuss that, then we'll get back to get in depth into the 5 industries. The question I want to ask you, and a lot of my viewers and readers would want to know, ask you this, in relation to the fact that the Uni Party name is starting to get some traction, and the duopoly. Now, the duopoly is basically where the Liberal Party and the National Party take turns with the Labor Party for control. That's what we mean by duopoly. They just take turns and they don't want anyone else to muscle in on the action. And that's why you'll see all 3 of them spending a lot of time attacking the Greens and independents, or Teals if you want to call them, community independents, because they see them as a threat to the duopoly. But there's also the term Uni Party that's starting to get traction as well. And that's where people argue that they're really one party. And I think that is proven to a degree in the fact that they all attack the Greens and the Teals. Those 3, they join forces, in effect, to attack the Greens and the Teals. So that, to me, points to the fact that they are a Uni Party, one party, or you want to call them a duopoly, taking turns. What do you think about those 2 terms and in relation to the Labor Party, Nationals and Liberals?
Well, first point is the term the Teals. Out of respect, I refer to those independent members, community independent members, as independents or indies. They have specifically asked not to be referred to as the Teals, yet both major parties, most media outlets disrespect their wishes. So I think, number one, they've represented their communities very well. They've been good performers in Parliament. So I think we should be respectful and refer to them as community independents. And as far as the Uni Party, look, there's plenty of evidence to support that viewpoint, given the way the majors have voted together on critical legislation against the independents and the minor parties. And as you say, you're absolutely right. The major parties seem to be more afraid of independents and minor parties than each other. And that could just be they've got into a very comfortable position where they can, you know, they know what each other's position is going to be. They know how to negotiate with each other. But when you have independents and minors, it's an element of the unknown and natural human behaviour. You're going to say, well, I know what the devil I know rather than the devil I don't know type of thing. So I think it's nice and easy for the majors because they're so accustomed. They know where they can go, how much they can negotiate, and all that sort of thing. There's, for the most part, parliaments are run very respectfully, and people get along very well across the parliament. And it's a nice, easy way to go, where I think if you've got a minority government and a mix of independents and minor parties, then the government has to work a bit harder. And that's a good thing, So I think the bigger the crossbench is, the better quality government we will receive.
Now, let's deal with the last federal election, 2022, in Queensland specifically, which is relevant to you and your chances. The Legalise Cannabis Party, I remember there being talk for days, if not weeks afterwards, that the Legalise Cannabis Party were potentially going to win the last, there's 6 seats in every state, 6 Senate seats, and you were potentially going to win that last one, but it fell over towards their end, and I think it was Pauline Hanson who was sort of jockeying with the Legalise Cannabis Party to win that last seat, which I don't think she wouldn't be up for re-election anyhow, because it's 6 years you get elected for. But how do you rate your chances? I think they're pretty good based on that.
Yes. Like at the last of the 2022 election, we came 7th in the Senate race. So we did just miss out by, I think, 60,000 votes for that final Senate spot. So that does give us, a bit of hope for this time, that maybe we'll get over the line now. Things have changed and things have moved on. More people are, becoming familiar with medicinal cannabis. More people are hearing our message and understand what we're about. We're raising our profile, raising awareness. So I think the time is coming where we will have a very, very good chance at getting one of those Senate spots. And hopefully it will be this election, because we have so much we want to do. And, to wait another 3 years before we get the opportunity will be a real shame. But we want to really, take our party now to the federal level and really bring a lot of health and economic benefits to Australians through that opportunity to have a seat in the Senate.
We'll get into it a bit more later, but it's worth noting now that you did come close. So if people want to vote and support you in your campaigning, and also on election day, which is probably just as important or even more important than joining up now and hand out how to vote cards, etc., or just I think you were saying that you don't have any preference deals or anything like that, but reminding people to vote for you is at an election polling booths. If they want to volunteer, they can go to your website, which is legalisecannabis.org.au, and they can volunteer, because it sounds like a couple of hundred more volunteers and you'll probably get over the line. And we'll get into that more later. But wanted to deal with...
I'll just raise a point there, Shane. When we have volunteers handing out harder votes, we double our vote in that booth. So the more people we have helping us on election day, and obviously we're a grassroots party, and, donations are always welcome, but we understand people are struggling. But if they can spare a bit of time on election day, then effectively they can help us double our vote. And it doesn't cost a thing, and you'll get a free T-shirt.
Yeah, oh, do they? Well, that'd be a bonus. I think they'll get a few people showing up. But I wanted to get into the 5 industries a little bit further. Don't have to go too in depth, but I'm just a bit more curious, because you say, I think you said biofuels.
Biofuels.
What does that actually mean? So if you can go a bit more in depth, you don't have to go, half an hour speech on each, but, just a quick view.
Well, hemp as a food source has multiple applications. It's almost as versatile as, other key products like wheat, rye, barley, all those sorts of things. It has so many applications for food, even, products, health, beauty products, hemp seed oil. There's just, it's huge. And the more we put into the food production side of it, the more we will meet the needs that Australians will have in the future, in terms of domestic supply of food sources. It's
what sort of food? What sort of food?
Well, any sort of food. Like you can have like bread products, pastries, like all those sorts of things. From the oils, you can have, you can already go and buy hemp seed oil. You can buy hemp. I use hemp seed soap. I have hemp oil ointments and topical creams. The applications, because cannabis is being banned and demonized and stigmatized, this is a whole thing that we're missing. And in many other countries, there are farmers and manufacturers developing new products every single day. There may be even other applications through beverages, to create I know, for example, you can buy cannabis beverages. You can buy, so there's lots of applications there. Fiber, 100% hemp, is amazing quality, similar in terms of it's a natural product, so probably similar to linen, the flax plant, and cotton. So it's a raw material. It can be mixed with other synthetic products, but it's best in its natural state as 100% hemp products. And just one of the interesting things I heard when I visited the University of Queensland's hemp farm overseas, from memory, it was Denmark. What they're doing now, this is where the research and development is taking us. So, for example, one of the new applications in terms of fibre for hemp is what they do. They'll cut up the hemp plant with water and they'll just make it into a paste, like similar to like a white glue paste. And all it is hemp and water. And then that is poured into a 3D printer. And then somebody, say, for example, you can go on, you can design your own garment or choose one that's already been designed, hit print, and within 6 to 12 hours at this stage, you can have a 100% original hemp garment printed in your own home. So that's where the hemp industry could take us in terms of fashion and fibre production. Fibre production also can extend to much more heavy duty materials like canvases and all that sort of thing. Materials to, for covering of vehicles or transport or curtaining or anything, lots of household applications. It's very likely it can be turned into carpeting and mats and things like that. So everywhere you look, the sky is the limit. The imagination is your only limit. There are so many things happening in this space around the world, and this is why we really have a sense of urgency, because we don't want to be left behind. The whole hemp industry around the globe is taking off, and the research and development is next level. It's out of this world, and we don't want Australia to miss out on those jobs and investment and business opportunities and that, the revenue it can generate for government. So that's just food and fibre. in terms of building materials. Hemp has become an important building material that is just going from strength to strength. It can be used in cladding. It can be used in insulation. Loads of products across the building industry. It's even another application outside the building industry is it's really, really absorbent. So say, for example, in the event of an oil spill, right now we use a lot of coconut fibre and different other products to sop up any spilled oil. Studies have proven that hemp is more absorbent than coconut fibre. So this is where we are. Every time we bring in a new product from hemp, it stands its ground against any existing product, and it is usually better than what we have. And so that's building materials and safety in terms of clean up oil spills. In terms of biofuels, that has the potential to be a real game changer in our energy mix. If we can have the hemp industry take off and simultaneously build up a biofuel manufacturing industry, we have no idea where that can lead us. And that could replace fossil fuels and help us transition to a carbon neutral net zero by 50. And that's something nobody's discussing hemp biofuels as part of the solution to our energy mix. So that's something the conversations will be starting if we're lucky enough to get into the Senate and the House. And then, of course, you have the medicinal aspect of the hemp plant. And that, again, has the potential, there has been over 2.2 million people on medicinal cannabis. So there is a thriving market for it. And I know one of the concerns most people have is they've visited other countries where cannabis has been legalised and they've walked down a street and they've smelt cannabis. They've smelt it. And so I think that's a problem we can resolve. We have designated smoking areas for cigarette smokers. I think it would just be a natural progression that once cannabis is legalised, that, it would just be the done thing that if you have a joint in public, you have it in a designated smoking area, as you would as if it's a cigarette. So I don't think the smell of the product justifies withholding the health and economic benefits to the country. I think we can get around the smell of the product, which is what I do hear is people's really only complaint about legalising it. They don't have a problem with legalising it at all.
Well, we've all walked past someone who's been drunk, so it's not a big issue.
It.
We all walk past a pub. I was going to say the biofuel, we're already using sugarcane to, I can't even think of the name of it. It becomes a product of fuel. I can't even think of the name of it. But we're using sugarcane to add to the fuel. So there's no reason why, cannabis wouldn't work, you'd suspect. Now, I wanted to talk about also you got other senators around the country, most states. I think there's not someone in South Australia at the moment. There's no one in the ACT, probably because ACT it's already legal. So it wouldn't achieve much in the ACT at least, although you could run a candidate there to help legalise it in other states. But would you like to say anything on their behalf, or just let people know they can go to the website and they can see the candidates there?
Yes, we've got some wonderful candidates standing for the Senate around the country. We have Fiona Patton in Victoria, Jason Miotti in WA, Miles Hunt in New South Wales, and the name of our Senate candidate for South Australia has escaped me, but you will see them on our website as we get close to the election, and also the people who are standing for the House in your area. I think we have 5 people standing in Southeast Queensland for the House of Representatives from our party. But certainly if there is an opportunity to put one legalised cannabis in your electorate, it is going to continue to send that message to government that attitudes are changing, and statistically over 50% of people agree with legalising cannabis. So I really, really think we're very close to achieving our political goal of legalising cannabis, and we have an awesome team this time around. So it's really exciting. And now with the Prime Minister calling the election this morning, it's a very exciting time for our whole team. We're very excited. We just want to get into it now. We've finished living in limbo. We've been waiting for this day. And yeah, so, but we have some wonderful candidates on offer and around the country. So I would encourage everyone to go to the legalisecannabis.org.au website and have a look at all our candidates, have a look how you can volunteer or join the party. It's free, lots of information there.
And donations, you want to say a bit about donations and how people can donate if they want to?
Oh, look, donations are the difference between success and failure in politics. They really are. You have a very well cashed up party and they'll go around and hire out every billboard in the electorate so that minors and independents can't, money is a very big issue. But when there's a groundswell of support for good policy and good candidates, that is an effective solution to a lack of money. And we understand how tough people are doing it. So as much as we do need donations, but we don't want to put pressure on people. And again, as I said, if you can spare a few hours on pre-poll or volunteering, that is a really effective way of helping our party if money is tight, and money is tight for everyone. So, so
they can volunteer, get a free T-shirt and help a good cause. There's one thing there that we won't get into too in-depth. We'll wind it up now. Don't want to overload people with information, but I'll try and get you back on again later and we'll touch on that in a follow-up interview if you've got time.
Love to.
That is a cost of living crisis, because you raise those 5 industries. Well, they address the cost of living crisis to some degree, or maybe even a major degree, maybe not short term, but medium to long term. So we'll have a look at that. But
one of our biggest cost of living, for cannabis users is the cost of it. And we advocate to grow at home. And if say, for example, cannabis users can grow 2 to 5 plants at home, they are literally will be saving themselves hundreds of dollars per week, thousands of dollars per year. And not everyone will grow at home. If we have a seed trade and seedlings available in Bunnings, for example, it's like tomatoes. Not everyone goes to Bunnings and buys the seedlings or seeds and grows their own tomatoes. Some people will, and some people will go to Woolies and buy their tomatoes. It'll be exactly the same with grow at home. So for those people, who can grow their own, or, for example, another part of our policy is if you don't want to grow at home, that's fine. You can gift your growing rights to a community group who will have like a community garden, and they can grow for, say, for example, disabled or elderly people who can't grow. And then that's a community helping community, and reducing the cost of living so that they don't have to pay anything at all apart from their time and efforts in growing their own cannabis, and they'll have a permanent supply of cannabis out of their garden for virtually nothing to address their chronic pain and ailments. And that for us, that's a no-brainer. That's a really big way we can help Australians immediately, is give them the right to grow at home.
And you said, I think you said there was 2.2 million medicinal cannabis users? Well, I was wrong. There is some short-term cost of living benefit there, and also there's going to be medium to longer term with those other 5 industries you spoke about.
There's all those medicinal cannabis users, and there's still a thriving street weed trade. So there's still a need for, outside of medicinal cannabis, you still have your recreational or adult use users. And, they are the people who would love to grow a few plants at home. And, to give people the choice of coming home after work between a beer or a joint, you don't have alcohol related issues with cannabis. People don't get as angry and itching to get into a fight. You don't have those issues with cannabis. It's a relaxation thing. It relaxes and calms, and to us, it just makes no sense that it's not legal, and we just want to remedy that as quickly as possible.
So, like I said, I'll try and get you back on. The election's been called. We got 5 weeks, I think it is, before the election. Was it May 2nd or 3rd? Can't remember off the top of my head. 3rd. So we'll try and get you on. Belinda, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Shane. I'd love to talk to you again, and maybe we could touch base on a weekly basis over the course of the campaign and keep everyone up to date on what's happening with our Legalise Cannabis Party, or maybe meet some of our other Legalise Cannabis Party candidates. But yeah, definitely head to our website if you'd like to help out, if you'd like to donate to my campaign. All the details are there, direct debit, and if you could just put Queensland if you're donating to my campaign. If you're donating to our other Senate candidates, put the state when you do donate. But that's wonderful. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for watching the interview with Belinda Jones from the Legalise Cannabis Party. And like we said during the interview, we'll try and get Belinda on a regular basis over the course of the 5-week election campaign. And we'll try and get some of the other candidates on as well. I'll end the video like I always end the videos. Kangaroo Court of Australia's independent media. I publish a website and a YouTube channel, and I'm 100% crowdfunded from viewers like yourself. So please support my Patreon account or PayPal account. You can donate any amount, $3, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30, $40, $50 a month, whatever suits your budget. It all helps out in a big way. You can do monthly donations or one-off donations, and you can go to my website and click on the donations page for other donation options. Please share this video on social media, and please hit the like and subscribe button and notification button. That way you get notified every time I publish a new video. Other than that, thank you for your time and have a good day.